From 10, Radio Whammo Breakfast.
You're listening to the Radio Whammo Breakfast, only on Kiwi.
Another episode of Mind Food Magazine is out now for the January-February. Goodness me, we're into 2010 already. Michael McHugh, editor of Mind Food Magazine, joining us over in Australia today. G'day there, Michael.
How are you?
Good. What does it feel like to be living in the future?
It feels weird because already we're working on sort of March and April issues, and so it's kind of trying to predict what's going to happen there. It's a bit strange.
Yeah, really strange. Susan Sarandon is on the front cover of the latest Mind Food, of course, because she's in the big old movie that we had the premiere for in New Zealand last night. Lovely Bones. That's
right. We interviewed her about 6 weeks ago in New York, and we photographed her on the top of an amazing building in New York and during the sunset, and she looks amazing. But she really loves New Zealand. In the interview, she talks all about, she sort of likes the politics and I think sort of how people think in New Zealand. So, no, it's a good interview.
She, of course, spent a lot of time here doing the film.
Well, she didn't actually. She didn't. That was the thing. That's what she said. She wished she'd spent more time in New Zealand because...
How did that work then?
She was in America for most of her filming, but the rest of the crew were mainly in New Zealand.
So
but she loved working with Peter Jackson.
They just superimpose her on backgrounds and whatnot.
Yeah, the clever blue screen.
Yeah, what's this about table tennis?
Well, she's actually just opened a bar. She loves table tennis, and she's opened a bar with table tennis, and all the celebrities, George Clooney and everyone goes. And although there's a private room there, she'd prefer that everyone just was out, where everyone can kind of see and no one gets pestered. So she's a bit of a groover, I think. Last night for wearing bare feet to the opening of the premiere in Wellington, I'm not sure about that. But, she sort of does it her own way, and she's obviously very active with some of the causes that she's very passionate about. And she speaks very openly and honestly in this interview about her kids. And, her daughter was in Californication, and she did a nude scene, and she's a bit of a groover, really, Susan Sarandon. Was her daughter one of the main characters in the earlier season of Californication? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And she used to be in The Nanny.
That's right.
Is that her? Right. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It was funny to see her grow up from a young, just a little girl in The Nanny, to, as you say, doing the naked scenes in Californication. Goodness me. How did she feel about that? Did she say anything about that, or?
Well, she's so upfront. She in fact, we sort of led the interview in with that. But I think what I like about her is she's very sort of down to earth. And I know how many times do we hear that about celebrities, but she really is. She's just what you see is what you get, and that's the great thing I think about Susan. She's she would have loved last night being in Wellington, and I read a quote yesterday. We interviewed her again while she was in New Zealand, and she said she loves New Zealanders. They're very down to earth, and kind of what they say is what they mean. It's not a lot of hype, and and I think she just sort of gets it,
Hey, let's say with film, because you've also got an interview with Jane Campion with the new movie Bright Star coming out early next year. Have you managed to see the movie yet?
No, I haven't. My staff have, though, and it was a really funny thing because we interviewed her, and she's actually done quite a few interviews around the world for this movie because there's a lot of Oscar buzz, and Abby Cornish is sort of, tipped to potentially, be nominated for an Oscar. And the other day I was flying, and Jane Campion was in the movie, and there was a surreal sort of moment where I felt I knew her so well because of the interview and what we had talked about.
Yeah.
But of course you don't. But she's fantastic, Jane Campion. She's another woman, a very strong woman, who has had a very clear idea, I think, of how she wants to create movies and how she wants to go about her life. And there's no apologies for it. And there's something quite liberating and gutsy, I think, having that attitude, and also interviewing those sort of people, because I think their take on life is much more interesting than people involved in the entertainment area, that kind of do everything that they think they're meant to do to get on.
Right.
Whereas, these women do take a few risks and really, I think just challenge the norm and challenge the way people think about stuff.
She's got to be quite happy at the moment because even though the movie's not fully out yet, the early critics reviews are in and they're very good. And I managed to see it at the film festival, and it seems like a return to form. It's a beautiful film.
Well, I think creatively, visually, she always sort of pulls it out for us, as viewers. I think, there were moments there, in the piano years and years ago that were just so special visually, and I think she just has that wonderful eye. There was a fantastic documentary in Australia here about her on the making of it, and that process she sort of goes through, it's almost quite ethereal. She's sort of very consultative, and you could tell there was a lot of sort of fun on the set. And really, I think sometimes when you see Jane Campion interviewed on TV or even in print, that often doesn't come through. But obviously, in that process of creating a movie, it's definitely there. And
she had some feedback from Quentin Tarantino about the film.
Yeah, he sent her a love letter, which is kind of sweet because I think you always think Quentin Tarantino's a bit of, the mad rascal of the film industry.
Yeah.
But also, she tells it how it is. She doesn't sort of milk that for anything other than what it was,
right.
Which I think that is what I like about Jane Campion. She's very refreshingly real, much like Susan Sarandon.
And of course, it's a good time for eating, and Mind Food's always got plenty of recipes. Is there any favourites for you in there at the moment?
Golly, I'm just trying to think. I'm sort of so engrossed in what I'm going to be eating for Christmas.
Well, what are you eating for Christmas?
A lot, I've decided.
Yeah.
One of my favourite shots, actually, in the food section is just that beautiful first shot of the mangoes that just look so fantastic. I can't wait to get those. There are 3 really great recipes with peaches and stuff. I don't know. At this time of the year, I just love fresh produce, and just keeping it very simple and
heaps of salad, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Looking back at 2009, was it a tough year, particularly in your field in the magazine industry, or do you manage to ride it out all right?
Well, it was an exciting year for us because we launched in 2008, March 2008. So this was really our first full year of production, I guess, or of publishing. And every month we sold more magazines and we sold more subscriptions and we got much more feedback from readers. And so for us it was a really exciting year because not only to see that sort of level of growth, but to get that feedback from people about Mind Food and, how much they love it and how much they love it within their lives. And, that's a pretty special thing. So
what about online? Is that starting to make sense?
It is for us, but it always has because it's been it's very much part of the brand. And we have much bigger numbers online than we do in the magazine because, we send over 60,000 newsletters out, electronic newsletters out every week.
Yeah.
So, and that just keeps building. And, and we do lots of different stuff that we can react very quickly to. So, one of our online producers was in Wellington yesterday and interviewed Peter Jackson and Susan Sarandon, so we got her on immediately, although we also, did the interview 6 weeks ago in New York. So you can kind of, with online, give it much more depth in terms of the immediacy around it, which is exciting.
But what about making it pay?
Yeah, well, we get good advertising revenue out of it. For us, that's our model, is to get advertising onto the site. We don't charge our readers or the consumers to come on. I don't really believe in that because I don't think that's what the internet's about.
So you're not going to do the Murdoch thing?
Well, I wish him lots of luck.
Yeah.
Because there will always be people. You don't have to own a huge big media company to, create great content.
Yeah.
And for, an audience to come to it.
Very good point there, and that's a great one to finish on. All the best for the early New Year. Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you.
And we'll catch up in 2010.
Definitely. Have a good one.
So yeah, that is Michael McHugh, is the editor-in-chief, of course, of Mind Food magazine, and the new one is out on your shelves. It's for January, February. It's got Susan Sarandon.